When I watched the team come back from the first trip, it intrigued me. It made me honestly tear up and just think to myself that I wanted to be there. I wanted to do that same stuff. I wanted to have those same feelings. I wanted to just experience life that way.
This time, it was just so much more. I mean, that's really the word that I can use. We were there longer. We were able to be more in the community.
It gave me a chance to see the real world. There was just something that was put on me that it's time to help somebody else other than American people.
Not saying the United States doesn't need help, but it's one of those things where going to a different country that is like one of the poorest in the world is just kind of like one of those things where I'm like, let's do this.
Even in Spokane, we see poverty, but I've been to really poor areas in the U.S. I've also been to Costa Rica and seen poverty, and so in the back of my mind, I didn't really think I was going to experience much more than I had already seen. And when we got there and crossed the border, shell shock. You don't realize conditions can be so extreme and that people can actually be living in that.
Nord-Est Orphanage is an orphanage in Wanamith that we got to go to. Pastor Daniel is the one who runs it, and he is such an amazing guy and is so personable that we all just kind of took to calling it Pastor Daniel's Orphanage.
Every ounce of anxiety, fear went away, and everything was so peaceful, so much light in such a dark place. And I seen it.
We had so many shoes donated this time that we were able to give shoes to every child at 2 different orphanages.
Are those good? Yeah, bien. We gave church shoes to the boys and to the girls.
There was one little girl there that said she had never gotten a pair before, and she was just overjoyed and really excited when she got them.
They're like, I think those are too small. And they're like, no, they're good. And they just want to walk away with them because they're their shoes, and they're brand new shoes, and somebody else picked them out.
All the boys were super excited. They'd get their shoes, and they'd run around and hug all of us, and the girls would hug and kiss our cheeks, every single one of us.
Thank you, baby.
It's David! The puppet show was one of my favorite things about the trip. That was an incredible opening no matter where we were.
It was very hot behind that curtain, and our arms would get exhausted. I loved doing it because I felt like it was one of the most important ways that we could interact with the kids, because it's such a childish and playful act, but we were still able to get a great Bible story across of David and Goliath.
When I was Goliath.
Who dares challenge me?
Probably the funniest thing I've ever done.
Overcoming big challenges in your life, which, I think is a perfect story for the people over there and for the kids over there. Let them know that they do have a voice and that they can overcome all of the challenges that they face there.
Bon Samaritan's a senior center.
Bon Samaritan was a totally different experience, and it was really engaging, but it was also heart-wrenching at the same time.
When you can't feed your children, you aren't going to put the resources to feed your parents if you have to choose between the two, and your parents are dying and elderly. So most of those people were abandoned, and Bon Samaritan took them in.
I happened to look over and notice an elderly lady that was laying on her little cot. Something about her just drew me right to her. She was 104 years old, and she was very depressed at that time because she was missing her husband. And she prayed over me as well as I got to pray for her.
We gave them manicures and pedicures. We just loved on them, served them, and just pampered them, something they've probably never really received. And they loved it, too. They started singing praise songs to us. And they weren't singing songs of praise for us. They were singing songs of praise to God, and they were thanking God for sending someone to take care of them. And it was really cool just to see that, they weren't really thankful to us. They were thankful to God because they knew that we were doing God's work.
One of the projects we got to do at Bon Samaritan was they had a drainage line that was plugged up for some reason, so we needed to unplug it. So we had to dig it up and then snake it out, and we had to open up a drainage area that had a big concrete slab over the top of it. We eventually got it running, and by the time we left, they were able to drain the gray water out of their main building again, so that was a big blessing for them. Also at Bon Samaritan, we got to see their medical clinic, which is kind of a new thing there. That was something that our church has sown into very heavily. We took a big chunk of money from the gift last year and used it to hire the entire staff there. So there's a doctor and 2 nurses that their full-time salary comes from money from the gift. It was really cool to actually see the money that everyone had given here in Spokane and see that actually being put to use in Haiti, and to see all the people that were able to be blessed by this freak med clinic, that were getting medical attention that wouldn't have got it otherwise, and were getting medications that wouldn't have got it otherwise, and that were able to see a doctor that they would have never seen otherwise. Hope for Life is another orphanage that we got to go see. It's out of town. It's a bit more rural than the other orphanages that we went to.
It was devastating seeing the difference from Hope for Life from Pastor Daniels, for sure.
I think I left my heart at Hope for Life. The first day that we got there was this little girl. She had no expression to her. She was totally absent. She wouldn't even tell me her name. She was so quiet. My heart just sank as I learned her story. She was thrown away by her parents when she was really little. They didn't want her. Here's this little girl who's totally malnourished, has absolutely no expression to her, has no ability to connect, has never been held and loved and had that motherly figure for her. And she's covered in pee sitting on my lap, and it's she needs somebody to love her.
That's it? Yeah. Try it on.
The clothing. The children just flocked around us to get the clothing, and they were all so excited. You could see the joy in their face. And then the girls afterwards all gathered around and started singing worship songs for us. Even the little ones, I would say 2, 3 years old, they were so into the songs. They were praising God and raising their hands, and that really stuck out to me, really touched me.
My God is mighty to save.
Our girls started singing too, and they would go back and forth, and that was just a really, really neat experience.
When we got to Hope for Life, it hit me that God said, welcome to my world. They walk barefoot, they walk through the mud and everything, and they get worms, and it gets into their stomach, and it gives them infections and everything. That was really put on my heart that we need to stop that. And one of the ways to do that is to construct a sidewalk so they don't have to walk through the mud anymore. And then the night before we built it, something was put on my heart that why don't you hire people to build it for you? You just tell them what you want. We were able to hire 7 people and pay them $5 for an 8-hour or 10-hour day, however long we were there. And that fed their families for 2 weeks. To me, it was life-changing, knowing that we were just a little sidewalk can change these people's lives forever. A little thing goes such a long way.
Duroc was the hardest day by far.
Duroc is a town that used to be supported by a factory, and then that factory closed down. And after the factory closed down, the people there were just kind of left to fend for themselves.
The conditions were so extreme, and it just made me look at all of them in awe. How do you do this? You don't have clean water, you don't have food, you don't have anything, and yet you're still alive. It was really, really hard to process all of that.
So it was awesome just to know that we brought so much medical supplies, and it was organized. They didn't have to go through duffel bags looking for things because they had extra. It was amazing to see the difference we could make with that.
We had a baby come through that his back was kind of eaten away. We were told that he had spina bifida. The thing that stuck out the most about that for me was Bill said those are the kind of choices that they had to make every day, was to send that baby that day and spend $600 to get him help, or wait 3 weeks for the U.S. surgeons to come in and be able to fix it for free. And of course, they had to wait because they didn't have the money to do it.
We handed out stuffed animals to all the kids, and it started out really cute because, you know, we got them into a little line and we'd hand each of them their stuffed animal, and they had big grins and they were just eating it up. It got to a point where all the kids weren't really doing the line anymore.
People were pushing and shoving and hiding stuffed animals to come back and get more.
It got so intense that we had to shut it down and go back inside the church and shut the doors to keep people from coming in because they were wanting those stuffed animals that bad.
It was hard to watch all of that because you know they're so desperate that they'll take anything, and in a parent's best interest, they want their kid to have as much as possible.
I just went into this different mindset of serving, and just quickly, how can I get food to the people who need it most, and how can I get clothes to the people who don't have any? Shannon and I, in our love for little babies, we started to see these babies who were just totally malnourished, and they were very little, and we thought we should feed these babies.
We got to feed the entire community, even if it was for one day.
I love that we're here and that we're able to bless these people so much, but what's going to happen to them tomorrow?
Danita's was totally different than anything. You know, right before we went to Danita's, we went to Duroc. Here you go from one of the poorest villages to an orphanage that is incredibly run by an incredible woman.
These kids had a playground, and they had sidewalks, and they had clothes.
My heart ached for the other places we had been to, you know, that didn't have those things. So it was inspiring to see that there is hope there and that there is someone that's able to provide for them.
There was a little baby there at Danita's. He was very malnourished.
As soon as I picked him up, I thought I would break him. I mean, it was just pure bones.
And we held that baby and we rocked him and we talked to him and sung to him.
When we were back from Haiti, we found out that he passed away.
Actually seeing all that and then knowing was really hard.
And I sat next to Katiana, was her name. She's 17 years old. Before I even said anything to her about her story, I did not let her know that I noticed that she was missing an arm. It's not like she didn't know that it was missing. I did go to a rodeo when I was 15 years old and had my own accident, and am blind in my left eye because of it, and I have an artificial eye because of it, and I'm handicapped. I just looked at her after a couple minutes of talking to her and said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" And she said, "Sure." And I said, "I would like to tell you a little bit about me." And I told her my story, what happened to me when I was a child. I told her just my accident story. And she just lit up. Just to relate to these children, to let them know that they're not the only ones that this has happened to, and that it's okay. That there's nothing wrong with them because of that they can still go and do everything that they've wanted to do. That was the best feeling I've ever had.
Haiti to me is a life change.
It's definitely changed me spiritually. Mentally, it's just made me, appreciate what I have even more.
Not a day goes by where I don't think about Haiti. It's made me incredibly grateful on a continual basis. And it's also made me really second guess the things I complain about, the things I want.
Before I went to Haiti, I was very stressed and overwhelmed with school, with my job. The second I came back from Haiti, the stress and the worry just went away.
It's been really hard to come back because the things back home that I thought mattered don't really matter.
I can see myself in the near future living in the Dominican Republic area towards the area of Haiti to continue help and continue what I started.
I've worked with children in the States for 25 years. And I just feel like that eventually we're supposed to be living there and helping these children.
They changed me in so many different ways to make me not to be ashamed that I'm handicapped.
Even though I have a lot of the things they don't, I want to live my life the way they do, as if I didn't have those things, and literally God is all I had.
I hope I never lose that just intense and overwhelming sense of gratitude of everything that we're blessed with here.
we have it good, and we should take every second and every day and remember that.